Hey, I wanted to talk to you today about pricing. What is the right price to charge for something? I know there's a lot of different schools of thought on that, and there's a few things that I really wanted to cover with in regards to that. And the first one is, have you ever been to a store and you go shopping, and as you're going through the store, everything has a price on it, and you're not going into the store and being like, oh, actually, I'm only going to pay you $1 for this gallon of milk. No, they have the price established. And for those things, those are all common commodities that people are used to buying. And there's not a huge variation in price typically. Like if you go to a big grocery store, you're going to pay a little bit less for that product than you will if, say, you ran to maybe the neighborhood convenience store or a gas station, because you're buying some convenience when you're buying the product at one of those convenience stores. But by and large, prices that way are set pretty standard. Now, it's a little bit more difficult when you're not selling a commodity. But when you are at those grocery stores, have you noticed how the products right next to the cash register are very inexpensive? And it's something that you wouldn't think a lot about. But once you see it, you're probably like, oh, yeah, I want one of those. And you grab it. So those are just a convenience sell, and it's an emotional buy that happens right in that moment. So depending on what you're selling, is going to have some factors on how you're going to price it and what you're going to do with it. So one of the pieces that I use as a metric for how much you're going to charge someone is, what is kind of the industry standard? Are there standards for what you're selling? If there are, then you're probably able to sell it pretty easily if you follow the industry standards. But there's another trick to that, and it's that the more time someone spends with you during the buying process, typically the more they're willing to pay. So an example of that is if I'm going out and I'm buying a pack of gum, I'm going to spend about 3 seconds picking which flavor it is, and I'm going to buy that gum and I'm done. But if I'm going out and looking for someone to landscape my yard, I'm going to spend a lot more time investigating, what do I want my landscaping to look like? Who is it that I trust? And how am I going to make the right choices around that? What kind of stuff do I want long term? And so there's a lot more of my mental energy that goes into those kind of a deal. And so then I'm a lot more concerned about investing the money, and I'm going to spend more. So during the sales cycle, some of the big organizations that will do high sales, high dollar amounts of sales, will make sure that they've got a big presentation that they're doing with you, because they know that the more time you spend invested in this, it means that you're more likely to buy and you're more likely to pay more. So the longer the sales presentation, probably the more expensive that item's going to be. It's not a secret to the people doing sales. They know if they can get you to invest your time in them, they're going to probably get more out of you as well. So what should you price something at? Here's what I do is I try and look about what the industry standard is. Go and look and see who the outliers are and how much they're charging and what they do for sales and how they're building that process up to be able to sell to you more and more, and what their sales cycle looks like. And then if you can figure out where you sit on that spectrum. Are you someone who wants to have a very big, deep, in-depth sales process with people? Or do you want to have a shorter, smaller, easier sales process? How you operate and how you want your business to operate is to a certain extent going to determine whether you're going to be one of the more expensive options on the market or one of the less expensive options on the market, I believe, because people put the value, they buy before they truly know what value they're going to get. They're buying based on their assumption of value. And so they're assuming at I think, a subconscious level that, hey, if I've already invested this much and they've invested that much in that conversation with me, they're going to do a really good job. And then if you haven't invested that much with them, they're going to be a little more hesitant to want to spend more money because they don't have that emotional connection. But they won't know you could be the best. You could be 10 times better than the next guy, and you're not going to be able to charge as much typically unless your reputation is there that you do the absolute best quality, if you're not putting in that effort at the front end to make sure that you're doing a really good job in that sales process to establish that baseline. I think it's kind of funny, really, and I don't entirely enjoy it, that idea that you have to sell them on their expectations rather than being able to sell them on reality. But I think that's just my own personal limitation, because for years of my life, I thought that everyone's perception was reality. But the more I interact with myself and consider myself and others, I realize all of us just have a perception, but we don't actually know what's going on. I saw a study once that was done years ago where there was a major newspaper organization put an ad out. This was not the study, but it led to the study. They put an ad out. You could buy digital only for, I'd say, like $69, or you could get print for $120, or you could get print and digital for $120, something like that. And somebody saw that and said, this is crazy. Why would you offer those same two things for the same price? And as soon as he reached out to the organization, they took that ad down. But then he did his own research off from it, and he started asking people, hey, if you were considering buying this and you had print only for $69 or digital only for $69, print for $120, or print and digital for $120, which would you buy? And like 70% of people bought the print plus digital for $120. But then he did something else where he took away that other option of just buying the print. So it was either you're going to buy digital for $69 or print plus digital for like $120, and it flipped. And now 70% of people said they would only buy just the digital for $69. So what that tells me is people also don't have a great idea of what they should be charging and what they should be paying. And so they use this perception of what's around them in order to try and make those judgments. They didn't know if it's a better deal to buy digital only. They didn't have a preference until they had that extra option right in the middle that was the same price as the premium option, but it didn't have all the features. So there's some crazy psychological things that are happening inside of our heads when we as customers are trying to buy, or when we as business owners are trying to sell. The trick is on the back end to make sure you're delivering all the value that the customer's expecting when they're making that purchase. When you do that, then price becomes a little bit less important, and you're going to ensure you have happy customers. And at the end of the day, it's not so much about how much you're selling or the price point. Is, did you solve their problem? Did you make their life better? And are they happy? And are you happy? If you're doing that, you have a successful business.